All right, quick summary. Some stuff pushing around. I like keeping virtual memory protections, physical to memory mapping stuff in the OS, so where it's protection related. Context switches, direct access to CPUs, files and I/O, I'm all good with having it over here. The fact that you have GC and type-safe memory. Now this is type-safe memory as a refinement on physical access, virtual memory, physical memory access, which is process level safety. This is object level safety, right? So this is a refinement on that. I like it here in the JVM. GC, JITting, code management belong there. So in the Java memory model, this is a WAD. You can't really separate them because they're too intimately tied together. Turns out fast locks are pretty closely tied into these as well, at least in the JITting process. Thread management kind of makes sense because it's a nice way to paper over differences in the OS when what it means to say new thread. Right now, Azul's faking thread priorities. I think it belongs to the OS. We're faking fast time. I think it belongs to the OS. OS resource management, finalizers, I think belong in the application domain. So applications right now, they're doing like these alternative concurrency things along with all the other stuff applications do. I think that's fine. But things like fixnums, tail calls, and closures, which are being done by different language implementations at the application level above the JVM, I think a lot of that could be moved into a JVM sort of usefully as a new service provided to people. Some stuff Azul's doing sort of specific to Azul. We do very aggressive virtual memory to physical memory remappings, terabyte a second remapping rates. InMap and friends are just too slow, so we have Linux kernel hacks to make this faster. And basically, we're exposing the hardware TLB to the JVM but in a way that's safe across processes. So when the JVM's got a bug and crashes, the OS still kills your process and not anyone else. But within a process, you can totally screw yourself up, and that's fine. Give me enough rope to hang myself. I'm good with that. Get the government out of telling me that I can't smoke a cigarette. I mean, I want to be able to, mess my own life up. But maybe it makes my life better if I do it right. As long as I don't hurt anybody else. Hardware performance counters is another stupid thing. We're already doing profile-directed compilation. We're already tracking all kinds of performance profiling counters. We're a natural consumer of hardware performance counters. Currently, x86 put them in like kernel mode only, and to scrape them out of the OS you have to go through a bunch of context switches in and out of the OS to get at these counters. It's just like, oh, come on, guys. What's the quickest and thinnest way to get these counters from the JVM, right? The counters themselves, have PCs that you map back to the JIT code, which maps back to the user's bytecodes and eventually Java source or whatever. That mapping's done by the JVM again. So again, I claim, the right thing to do with hardware performance counters is move them up through the OS as fast as you can into the JVM. So for Azul, we have another couple of games here. We're moving this mapping into the VM and this mapping into the VM with kernel mod hacks, and these mappings down into the OS. Those features back down into the OS because I think they belong down. So that was just a little thing. Okay, summary. I got a job. And that's it.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a question. Well, on these bigger Azul boxes, how much does it matter that you have something like a non-uniform memory access architecture? So people are building languages like X10, where you have the notion of locality.
Right. So on the big Azul box, it's a uniform memory access. It's not NUMA. It's UMA. And we did UMA because we were targeting business logic Java, which doesn't have regular access patterns. And so all accesses are essentially random, and the distance to memory would then be your random spray across the whole box. And so if you have a 16-chip Azul box, 15/16 of the memory is remote and 1/16 is local. But if you're doing random access, then 15/16 of your accesses are remote. Most of them are remote. So there's no point in making local fast because you don't get any gain out of it. So we made it uniform. And so it's sort of uniform mediocre speed. The local accesses are not any faster than the remote ones, and they're not terribly fast, at least compared to big cache x86 and front side direct access bus. But the remote accesses are not that slow. They're not as slow as across the far side of some of these big cray boxes of various kinds. They're decent. So it's a uniform access speed model targeting people who can't give you good locality guarantees. So it's not the X10 model of you're directly thinking about NUMA placement.
So the basic requirement is you have these business kind of applications, and they just don't work in a way that they could exploit locality.
Right.
But if you have these kind of scientific applications where you really have very specific kind of problems, then you could exploit it, but that's not something you're targeted at. So
that's right. Right, and in fact, I would say that the scientific guys have shown that they have real issues exploiting it. That the limits of their ability to program are up till they can't handle what the locality questions are, requirements are, where it makes sense to split the data for the access patterns, which are changing at different points in their algorithms. And so they have real issues there, getting that figured out. And I understand why they want language support to help them, but I think they're up against a point where the complexity of the algorithm is going to exceed their ability to do a good breakdown. And eventually, there's still going to be a market for uniform memory access because it's just going to be too hard to do good NUMA layouts. Within Java, within a single thread of a locus of control, there is a local access pattern having to do with what's on your stack and the sort of normal working set. But those typically fit pretty nicely into your caches. It's when you have the really big data sets and they're not fitting in your caches that you also don't have good locality on the big business logic programs.
This question, feel free not to answer it. What do you feel the effect of the Oracle issues?
Right.
How's that going to affect innovation? Because it seems like they want one open source VM under their control, or OpenJDK.
Right.
So how do you think that's going to
so
affect the landscape, I guess?
Yeah. So it seems pretty clear they're going to uncork the JCP process and let loose a bunch of pending JSRs. They're probably going to have a JCP process that's not quite a rubber stamp, and to appease IBM and the rest of the community, but probably won't be terribly much beyond Oracle rubber stamping. And there may be some issues that IBM can raise that Oracle will have to bend on, but I suspect they'll keep it kind of on a short leash, but they're going to let innovation roll forward because that's going to appease most people, at least in the short term. So I think we're going to see some innovation. They're going to see some JSRs come out. You're going to see the Lambdas and the Coin project, and closures are going to hit and fixing them, auto-boxing, all that kind of crap. For outside of that domain, they're looking for a way to monetize. And everyone recognizes that that's what they're going to do. They paid their $1 billion to buy Sun. It wasn't to spend $1 billion to rescue Scott McNeely's stock options. So what's Larry going to get for his money? Where's he going to get his money out of? And the obvious thing to do is charge for hotspot, which you can't because it's open source, public domain, fine, but you can charge for new features. And the obvious thing to charge for is upcoming GC algorithms. That's the big pain point. So expect to see people charging for better GC algorithms, or people who are willing to pay for better GC algorithms, which is going to be big businesses running Java in production backroom servers. And that's exactly where Azul's heading with our x86 offerings. We got a better GC, we're going to bill for it, and we're targeting big businesses running Java on x86 servers in the data center. That's how we're going to monetize as well.